Venri Chapter 22. Timeline. Citadel. Shore leave. Shepard. Well, if she'd ever wanted to know if she could take down people in a leather dress with a pistol, she had that question answered. Not that it was easy. This was a lot more sneaking and hiding than she liked to do. Please don't let me die. Please, don't let me die. I still haven't had dinner. Her stomach clenched in protest and she sighed. The most embarrassing part was that she didn't even really care for sushi, but that wasn't a good thing in a Turian's wife. Admit I don't like raw fish or die, unburdened of the soul. Let's go with not admitting I don't like sushi and living. Oh, crap. More bad guys. This is why she loved high heels, but she hated high heels. Her calves would look magnificent if she tripped and died. Garrus's voice crackled over the intercom. Morim, this is why you don't go to dinner without me. You couldn't have eaten it anyway. We didn't even make it to the apps. What have you got to work with there? Hunger and high heels? Oh, spirits, please guide your daughter. And bring me food. Oh, spirits, please deliver. Okay, this has to stop. I'm giving away my position. Everyone on the Citadel knows where you are, Morim. I can hear it from here. Then hurry up. Good thing I'm not in high heels. James said, I'd like to see that. Me too. After. They probably won't fit. Liara said, we'll have them custom made. Oh, hell. Rocket launcher. Yours or theirs? If it were mine, I wouldn't be saying hell. I'd be saying, wee. Stay the hell down, Morim. That is not going to work for me. See you soon. By the time she made it to him and she heard the familiar sounds of his rifle, she was giddy with relief and adrenaline. No, spirits, thank you. Nobody needs to know I don't really like sushi now because that was my only chance, wasn't it? That place is ruined. She was still twitchy and nervous, not knowing where the next shot was going to come from, but Garrus made it to her and pulled her one-armed into a kiss that yanked her heels off the floor. And then she forgot she had feet. By the time Joker was on his way, Garrus had her behind the most defensible cover, a vehicle in the corner. She tried to look around the side to see what was going on, but he pulled her back bodily. Oh, no. Now we wait for backup. I made it here, Garrus. We can get out of here. Now we wait for backup. He pulled a ration bar from one of his packs, handed it to her, and said, Eat. She struggled, or tried to struggle, and did absolutely no good. A whole lot of noise was happening, and she looked up at Garrus. Rex has arrived. Oh, come on! I want to be out there in that! He looked down at her. Absolutely no way in hell. Eat. She considered his mutiny. I have thermal reads on everybody in the room. I will handle anybody that comes by, but Rex is getting a lot of attention. We are going to stay here until you eat something. If you're not done by the time he is done, you get to explain why I'm holding you down. She glared at him and then took a bite, chewing fast. I'm not a child. No, you're not. A child would be more reasonable. Rex yelled over, Hey, Shepard! What the hell? Are you hiding? She was chewing, giving time for Garrus to yell, She fainted! I haven't fainted, I'm just going to kill my husband. James's voice sounded from somewhere up and over as though he'd rappelled down a wall. Hey, Scars, when she beats the shit out of you again, record it this time. Shepard kicked Turian ass, huh? And I'm about to do it again. If you gentlemen would clear a path, please, I'm going to carry my fainting wife out of here. She glared at him while chewing and considered hitting him, which made him say, You are in a dress that, though lovely, provides no protection. You are in heels that make it likely you will twist an ankle if you try to run. There is broken glass everywhere. I'm carrying you because I'm faster than you are. I will make a harder target to hit. I will be your armor. If you argue with me, I'll punch you. Damn, Shakarian, you are a sexy man. Kiss me. He smiled at her. No way. I'm falling for that. She figured she probably had enough fun, all things considered. At least she wasn't hungry. All right, let's get this over with. Helpless woman, ready to go. She went boneless, hoping it would make it harder for him to pick her up. No, Turian's strength made picking her up about as awkward for him as hoisting a pillow. She threw her arms back dramatically, and her tongue came out of the side of her mouth, looking appropriately helpless. Oh, spirits, the drama. Shut up and carry me. He sprinted to the shuttle, and she stayed in his arms, playing up the helpless part, but still making sure her dramatics didn't leave her head out as a target or put his balance at risk. When they got there, she sat up, waved enthusiastically at Rex, and then dramatically fell back again, eyes crossed. Rex said, Good thing you got hold of her there, Shakarian. She'd try to hug me. James said, She can hug me. She can't hug either of you. She's distraught. I hate you guys. Timeline. Silver Coast Casino. Infiltration. They'd hashed out where they were going to go from here. Wherever here was. She had no idea. But she did know that people were shooting at her. Fortunately, she'd escaped without any major wounds, just a few scratches. The worst off were her knees, because kneeling in broken glass in street without protection wasn't fun. The dress was a loss now, because sweat and leather and bits of glass were not friends. She needed to shower and start over. Garrus was going to get ready to go to the casino, but he was still in armor. She remembered one of the first things he'd said to her, casually, walking around the Citadel when she'd first recruited him. If you feel lucky, we should visit the casino over in Flux. What had she thought? I am so glad he's Turian. I'd be having a problem otherwise. That memory and the fact that she could recall everything he'd ever said to her made her blush about her stupidity. She should have known. She really should have known right then. So much for her ability to predict events. She stepped up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist as he was looking in a closet for something to wear, and she told him, I feel lucky. He turned and combed her hair back with his fingertips. You must be lucky. You're still alive. It was one of the first things you said to me in your casual voice. If you feel lucky, we should visit the casino over in Flux. Was that you trying to do an impression of me? She squeezed harder. I am inadequate. I just thought how little I knew. I should have... Well, I was a different person then. You couldn't just tackle me. I should have, though. Yes, you should have. If we ever get a time machine, we're going back. You get to seduce me, and I get to seduce you. I wouldn't put it beyond the realm of possibility, this time machine. We've come across some weird shit. I should make up for it now. Make up for what? Not tackling you. People are waiting. They have pizza. Commander Shepard, I believe that is abuse of your position. Oh, You said magic words. Abuse and position. Commander Shepard, I believe you should be told no more often. I'm told no all the time. You can say it yourself if you'd like. I'll just keep on doing what I'm doing until you stop saying it. She started to take off his armor, and he pretended to try to grab it as it fell to the floor. This is highly inappropriate. Oh, more magic words. High and inappropriate. What I wouldn't do for some crates. I understand humans are different, but... She started kissing at the side of his neck. But... What? But I should not humiliate the Turian. Ugh. That's what I like to hear. I am so easy. That's part of what I like about you. Come on, shower. I swear it would go just like that. Only with crates. With you, I'd have just as easy of a time. No, I'm a difficult person. You always say. Some things are straightforward. I wouldn't even need crates. I'd just break into her cabin and slide into bed next to her while she was sleeping. Cheating. Well, yeah, but she deserves it, being all sexy and stupid. Ever the romantic. Even if she hit me a few times, we'd both be okay with that in the long run. Please stop making me jealous of me. Even if I had to tie her down, I would persist. Got any rope on you? No. We go to the shower with the supplies we have, not the supplies we want. He laughed, helped her finish removing his armor, and then scooped her up and carried her into the shower. Timeline. Identity Theft 2. Meanwhile, in an archive. She'd considered having clones? Of course she had. It had showed up in her nightmares. Being reborn had not come without baggage. She didn't have all the time she needed to point out the problems in the plan of this clone. Looking like her was one thing. Actually, acting like her was something else. There was still Hackett and Anderson to get through. If she took off with the Normandy, though, yes, that would be bad. She said as she climbed up the ladder, Guys, I am nothing without my team. She is nothing without you. Keep it up. Let's just kill everybody and go home. Vega asked, Think I could get her to give me a hug? Liara responded, Not without your pitchfork, it seems. Garrus kicked in. Pretty sure she'd be into me. She looks like she's into burned-out cops past their prime. And you, still without rope. You guys really know how to freak me out. Rex called over. It's a gift. Ha! You guys are out of practice. You're never catching up to my count. Then she heard Caden say, Okay, now I know I'm back. Things get this weird this fast? I'm back. Moram arranged for a memorial for Morden. She'd done some research on Salarian customs. Salarians were not all that sentimental, but there was some music she wanted to use. She practiced it with Edie, a simple round. There were no traditional Salarian colors for mourning, but she chose the rusty coral that had made up much of the color on his face. In keeping with the brief lifespan of Salarians, she did some more research. She and Morden were about the same age, but he only would have lived for a few more years. He had been 3/4 done with his life, and she was only 1/5 done with her life, potentially. Not everyone had known Morden. She invited everyone who had known him to the small ceremony, but not everyone was on the Citadel and able to attend. Of her crew, only Garrus and Liara had known him. Of her previous crew, hardly anybody was there. Thane was gone. She thought of Legion and wondered where he was. If he was. Karen had worked closely with Morden. Morden hadn't had time for friends. She and Garrus were probably the people he had been closest with. Due to her taking out only one person with Garrus at a time, he never traveled with the other members of the group until the final mission, and then she'd sent him back to the ship with the crew to help them recuperate. Other than playing cards or asking questions about waffles, he'd been mostly a solitary figure. She'd thought of inviting other Solarians, but Morden calling Kirahea a cloaca made her dismiss that idea. She didn't know many Solarians herself, and Morden had been the best representative of his species. Without Morden, they'd have had no countermeasure. The swarms would have done them in. The mission would have been impossible without him. Saving Palaven by saving Tuchanka's future never would have happened. She still had his locket. She still had his sense of humor and his music and his drive. She asked Rex to come speak since he was available. Bakara was still on Tuchanka, and travel was too dangerous to risk it. She had the service outside, near the central canal. They gathered around the edge, upstream. She had a gown in his color, which was near to her color, near her tattooed markings in the same vein of red. Morden was definitely Clan Shepard material. She'd had seashells molded from material that would dissolve in the canal and benefit the system. In the upturned bowl of each was a lit flame that would not burn down until the seashell dissolved in the water. Fitting. Like a sand mandala. He had spent his brief life being useful, lighting the way, illuminating the dark corners of potential knowledge. Simultaneously ruthless and without conscience, and benevolent in the way that he had set the genophage in place and then taken it away. He hadn't hesitated to give his life. She'd cried so often lately that tears didn't come to her here amid the people, the friends that would understand tears from her. She and Edie began the memorial by singing the Solarian round in simple voices. A slight breeze rustling hair and dappling the light from trees casting shadow. She said, Morden's life was brief and brilliant. When I'd asked him about potential retirement, he said, might go somewhere sunny, sit on beach, look at ocean, collect seashells. There was a ripple of soft laughter, and that made her smile. He has allowed future generations to see their suns shine, sit on beaches, look at oceans. I miss him. It is always an education to not be the smartest person in the room. Garrus smiled at her. Then you must be educated all the time. She nodded. It's true, I am. I couldn't do enough to deserve this crew, these people in my life. Thank you for coming to honor him. She put the shell adrift in the water. Bakara had sent a recorded message, and Edie played it. To those here honoring Morden Solis's life and death, may I say he was my friend. I would not be here on my home planet, hope finally allowing life to return, without him. He has given us hope and a future, and we will fight with you. We will fight for him. My time on the Normandy was brief, and so was his life. I will make the most of the life he has given me, and I thank you for what you have done and what you will do. In his name, All blessings of the ancestors upon him. Rex carried a shell to the water for Bakara and set it adrift. Then he said, "He was a tiny little Solarian squeak that I wanted to kill almost every time I met him. That's not unusual. I usually want to kill most people I meet. The way he talked made my head hurt, but I will say this for that little man. He made me not want to kill him, and that never happens. I usually want to kill you, Shepard." There was laughter, and Moram put her hands up as though she entirely understood. "I believed in him, and I was right, even if he shouldn't take samples that way. You little Solarian jump-up weed. You did it. I remember. Tuchanka remembers." He set another shell in the water. Jack came forward awkwardly and took a seashell like it would bite her. I didn't know Morden all that well, but he knew me. Or I should say he helped me. He noticed once, just once, that I had a tremor in my right hand. He said he saw it from the way I carried a tray in the mess. I told him to fuck off, but he ignored me and dragged me back to the lab. I didn't kill him, and I'm more like Rex. If anybody else had grabbed my hand and started pulling, they'd be bleeding out fast, but he said the tremor was from my implant. I didn't want anybody in my head, but I believed him. It took him about 10 minutes to reprogram shit I don't understand. He said he was done, and he went back to work on some sort of other crap. I have no idea what it was. I just stood there like an idiot until he noticed me a few minutes later and said I could leave now that he had work to do. And I did. I still have no idea what the fuck. But my hand is steady, and for some reason, food tastes better, and... Anyway, freaky little dude. I will never understand, but thank you. She shrugged and set the shell in the water, adding to the trail of lights. The stories continued until the last shell remained. Edie took it up and then sang the part of the Pirate King from Pirates of Penzance, amplifying the orchestra and backup singers. Moram stuck to a steady alto line for the accompaniment. Although our dark career sometimes involves the crime of stealing, we rather think that we're not altogether void of feeling. Although we live by strife, we're always sorry to begin it. For what we ask is life without a touch of poetry in it. Hail, poetry, thou heaven-born maid, thou gildest in the pirate's trade. Hail, flowing font of sentiment. All hail, divine emollient. Moram listened. That's what she'd asked her to sing, but Edie was not done. Because with all our faults, we love our queen. Yes, yes, with all our faults, we love our queen. Yes, yes, with all our faults, we love our queen. Moram started to cry with Edie's song, saying, "No Englishman unmoved that statement hears." Edie stepped forward and gave Moram a hug, and then Edie took the last shell and set it adrift. Everyone was welcome back at the apartment for a reception, but she lingered for a while. They could let themselves in for now. She hacked up her skirt and sat with her feet in the water, watching the lights travel down the water until they were gone, dissolved, or out of sight. Garrus came and sat down beside her. When she pulled her feet from the water, he took them in his hands and warmed them, his fingers digging into the arches and muscles until she groaned in pleasure, and laid back on the edge of the canal, leaves filtering patches of green light. Present peace was a real thing. Future peace seemed a possibility. Go in peace, my friend. Meanwhile, in an open field, Javik had said, "Please do not touch me." "Come on, man, it's just a hug." "Please do not tell anyone that I allowed you to touch me without killing you." "All right. No hugs. How about a thumbs up? Would that be okay?" "Does it involve touching?" "No." "Then yes, do that." Timeline. Omega. Shepard. Arya had made her an offer. Moram might have jumped at this deal when she was with Cerberus, but she wasn't with Cerberus any longer. It felt like carrot and stick. Take Omega back, get support. Did she need it that badly? Yes. Did she trust Arya? Absolutely not. Arya would sacrifice her without qualm, possibly with relish. She liked Arya a lot, but that didn't mean she was trustworthy. This was close to a 50-50 split on risk versus benefit. Throw in that she'd have to do it alone. There were other factors to consider, particularly because she'd promised not to lie about life or death. She was pretty sure how this was going to go in general, but not the specifics. She could make the call that before she finished talking to Garrus about it, she wouldn't be going. She was relieved at that conclusion. It wasn't as necessary to be insane as it used to be. The game was bigger and smaller fish could swim away. Omega was a medium-sized fish, not on the level of the Krogan army, but if she didn't get Omega on her side, odds were that Omega would fight back on its own. She was okay with not going. Time to let him know. He'd moved an extra weapons table into their apartment because it was him. He could have all the things he loved close. She looped her arms around him as he was bent over some guts of a gun. Might be his, might be hers. He'd said if her aim was so bad, he might as well make sure he couldn't blame the gun. She'd let him do it because, hey, free maintenance. If she could get out of taking care of her guns, he could say whatever he wanted. She'd let him win at target practice on the top of the Presidium, and his gloating was so adorable she couldn't be sorry for using biotics more often than her rifle so he could keep ahead. He was hard to keep up with, anyway. She did compete, but sometimes she just slightly botched it, and only made him sweat about the score maybe once a month. Enough to keep him interested, on his sniper toes. It was a positional thing. She could, in fact, pick off targets since she was accustomed to being up in the front anyway. Situational circumstances meant she could alter her shooting stats, like playing Skillion 5 to let someone else at the table win. She was never, ever going to tell him. Even if he suspected, he clearly liked it this way. He was never, ever going to force her to say she was possibly as good as he was. She told him, "Arya has a deal for me." He didn't stop cleaning. "Does it involve auctioning off dancers?" "No, she's here because Cerberus took over Omega." He put the pieces of the gun down, wiped his hand on a rag, stood up, and put his hands around her waist. He looked at her for a moment, then asked, "Okay. When do we go?" "Yeah, there's a catch. She wants me to go alone, with her help." He leaned in and pressed his mouth plates to her throat. "And you told her no?" "I didn't, actually. I wanted to talk to you about it first, because if I go..." "You're not going. You want Omega, we'll get Omega. We can have a contingent of Krogan intended for Palav and wipe the place out in 2 days. Arya promised fleets. He pulled back and met her eyes. Fuck. Arya. She lost Omega. She needs you to get it back. Anything she could get for you, you could get on your own. With me. Or a lot of Krogan. We wouldn't even have to be there. Well, yeah. You'd already decided not to go. How the hell could you know that? Because you don't know yourself in a fight. But I do. She narrowed her eyes. There's gotta be more to it than that. Yeah, well, you smell different when you're in for the long haul. This was at best short haul. Even non-existent haul kind of deal. You know the irony of being a person who's famous for reading other individuals, who is married to someone she can't read, but who can smell her intentions? I don't always like it. So you thought you'd just hand this one to me? Bolster my ego? Let me talk you out of something? Well, I can hear your voice in my head, disapproving at a distance. I'm very sorry that I consider you to be sane now. You take that back? Okay, so this is one of those first date role-playing hands-on-her things you discussed before? No, that wasn't... Shit. I have no idea what I intended. Maybe the boost your ego thing. As if your ego needed boosting. I think you just want me to touch you. Do I smell like that, too? All the time. It's really hard to not be smug. I don't think you're managing that as well as you think you are. So, what's stopping you? He kissed her. You don't need a reason for sex. I wouldn't seduce you into doing things my way. I'm forearmed. I could just threaten you. Go to Omega alone, and I'll detonate the entire station. Go to Omega, and I'll kill your hamster. You'd never kill my hamster. But you know I'd blow Omega away entirely? Hell yeah, that's a reasonable assumption considering your history with the place. Good. Then we understand each other. You know not to do ridiculous things, and you know if you do them, I now have the resources to retaliate. Things as they stand are much better than they have been in the past, at least for me. I'm far from helpless. Hell, upset me and I could turn Palavan against you. Not humans, just you. I can make you pay in ways I couldn't before. It's gone to my head. I like your ideas anyway. Let's do that Krogan thing. Promise the Krogan the use of all the ships on Omega, then take that fleet back to Palaven. We can give the station to Arya anyway, because who wants Omega? And without her, I never would have gotten to you on time. She gets Omega, we get the fleet, the Krogan get to clean house, Arya gets to repopulate with her own people. Win, 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 win. It's done. See how easy that is? You know, we might actually win this damn war. We are sharp individuals. We're not individuals any longer, Bakan. He unzipped the front of her jacket and shrugged it off her shoulders. I didn't know you could work those things. Your fine motor skills are impressive today. Ever a smartass. He slipped her shirt off over her head and then opened her bra blind in moments. Now that I know you can do that, clothing bills are going down. It's merely proof of concept, not a prototype. We can afford it. I shouldn't have to stop having fun. They removed the rest of their clothes quickly, and he turned her around, ran his hands over her back. He pressed his mouth to the back of her neck and then dragged his face along her shoulders. Smooth side of mandible, rough side of scar. She could imagine red lines appearing on her back, then disappearing. His mouth then settled on the side of her throat, his tongue gliding along the curves of her neck. He brought his hands around her body to cross and cup her breasts, pressing her back against his chest. He growled against her throat. She reached back with her hands, found his shoulder, dragged her knuckles over scent patches. She looked at her hands for a moment, then pressed her fists into the sides of her neck and spread the scent there. He growled softly against her skin, and she felt that languorous sense of home. As though she had a timer in her mind, and she came back to him before his scent could wear off. I don't think I ever smell like myself anymore. You smell like mine. When you're right out of a shower, you still smell like mine. I'm in your blood now. I always want more. You can always have more. You are my home. He kissed at the side of her throat. You are my path. He kissed along her spine. You are my purpose. He kissed at the other side of her throat, tightened his fingers on her breasts. An idea that had been playing in her mind became more concrete, and she turned in his arms. I want to try something. What do you want to try? She drew back her hands, and there was a blurry play of biotics between them. Biotics are warned not to play with their fire, but I want to play with my fire. Well, that's new. I have no idea what that means. So we find out together. I think I can finally get, how did Turians put it? Under your plates? Through your plates. When someone makes you lose your temper. Oh, right. For humans, it's under their skin, but I think I can control it. Just let me know if it doesn't feel right. Just try not to kill me. She moved her hands over his chest. I'll try, but I'm really good at killing things. There's a heart in there. Try not to stop it. Noted. Hold still. He'd been taking steps back, and he took a half step again. Come on! I never told you that you couldn't stop my heart. His eyes flicked unconsciously to the nearest exit, and then he relaxed. All right. When you have to explain it to Dr. Sharp. His voice cut off as she brought her hands to his chest and activated just a little. Not much. And not much sound. A slight hum. He started to laugh, looked down at her, shaking his head. Okay, that's just ticklish. She smiled at him and deepened the field half again as much, and he held still, tilting his head to the side. Okay, that's less ticklish and more... Huh. She watched his face as he shrugged, slightly. What she really wanted to do was to get a concentration of energy under his plates, not ticklish. She tried again, expanding the field just a little bit more, and he leaned into her hands. Oh, that is... She knew what it was. Warm waves of energy that were like massage. She'd learned to do this for herself as a comfort when she was younger. She hadn't done it in a while. She'd given it up when she'd begun to bunk around other people because humming blue waves were impolite and freaky. Something to stop the way a child would stop using a security blanket. Now she ran her hands over his plates and skin, imagining how it might feel, imagining his skin untouched before now, pulsing. She moved her hands, one to the side of his throat and one to his waist, and the look on his face as he tilted his head back and groaned was what she had been hoping for in a reaction. She let loose a low and soft laugh and pulled him over to a near couch and sat him down on the edge, climbing behind him and positioning her thighs on the outside of his. She ran her hands over his back and sides, listening to him hum and growl. She ran her hands down either side of his spine, and he started to breathe harder. She put one hand splayed across the back of his head, fingertips touching each kinrow spacer, and he arched his neck back into her hand and groaned again. She knew those sounds. Those were good sounds. It took some focus, but she could have the fields rise again as soon as they faded. It wasn't a full-body effort, more like breathing. He sounded so good. She closed her eyes and leaned against his back, bringing her hands around to trace over his chest, over the lines of plates. With one hand coming back up to the spots under his fringe, she lowered her hand to his groin plates, and they opened faster than she'd ever experienced, and he jerked up in alarm. Did that hurt? No, that wasn't me. Oh, that is good to know. Did that hurt? No, but it's weird. Really weird. I just can't control the muscles. Oh, spirits, stop that. She stopped. Can you control them now? She moved her hands away and they closed. She couldn't resist, so she reached her hands, both, down again and pressed at either side and flared, and he made another vertiginous sound as the plates opened again. This she was going to enjoy. You humaned me. I can't believe you humaned me. Oh, I like this discovery. Spirits, I don't know why you've abandoned me, but... Oh, I don't care. That is... Please. Her hands moved again when she was sure he wasn't in pain. She gentled them to warm vibration and then stroked his cock with her hands. Blue light along the blue length. He leaned back against her and pressed her back into the couch, angling his fringe back so the ribs were down her back like extra fingers. She shifted up so his head was leaning back against her shoulder. She moved one hand to the front of his throat to feel his groans and purrs and heavy swallowed breath. She used her fingers and palm against his cock while he groaned and turned his head to kiss her throat with the edges of plates and tongue. She turned to look at him, and his eyes went from hazed pleasure to intent, and then focus, that hunter's instinct in his brain making his eyes pure Taurian. He surged forward, pulled her with him, and had her flat on the hard floor with his vertigo speed that always left her brain dazed, unable to catch up. He positioned her with his bent knees to either side of her hips, her hands at his waist, hard invasion pressing her down into the floor with no cushion, deep and gasping. We are doing that until the lights go out. He held deep inside her and moved as she moved, blue light casting shadows as her hands roamed from his waist to his chest to his throat, eliciting frenzied and layered sounds from him. He moved her hand to her breast and pressed her palm down while he licked at the other nipple, pressing her hand between them as he dragged himself up over her body, groaning again as the energy passed through him, and her hand at his waist flared and pressed him inside as her hips arched up to him. He'd hold deep inside her, muscles straining while she held her hands against a part of him, neck or waist or bands of plate edges, then thrust into her while she moved hands to different places, sweat and trembles overtaking her, biotic pulses more out of her control. One hard pulse caught him to the side of his neck, and he snarled at the feeling, but when she pulled her hand back, he snarled in her ear, thrusting and revelry exploding waves. Don't stop until you can't anymore. He bit her earlobe for blood, and then pressed her mouth into the side of his throat. Her hands blew on his back, and blood blew on her teeth. His hands came to either side of her throat, and he held her head still, elbows on the floor, but his knees and hips driving into her, then stopping and holding her while twisting inside. Her hands came to either side of his throat as he kissed her, hard and demanding. His weight pressed the air from her, and the sounds he made, the depth of him, his frenzy, carried her far beyond herself until she didn't remember what biotics were at all, and the sound of her name didn't mean anything.